Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for my annual wrap and chat video. I am wrapping solo tonight without John. He's actually asleep. It's been a wild December for me, and I have to get started on some stuff. I don't even have a single gift wrap, so we're gonna go ahead and get started tonight. Tomorrow night's the night where John and I will sit down. Well, it'll already be done by the time you guys see this, but tomorrow night for me is the night where John and I will sit down and watch Christmas movies all night and wrap all the little details. But I need to get started on some wrapping, and so this morning I asked really quick on Instagram, like, hey, if I can pull together a wrap and chat video, what questions do you guys have? And so I got a bunch of questions, really good ones. I'm gonna go ahead and go through some of those. I'm gonna try to set like a 20-minute or so timer and just chat through some of these questions as I wrap some presents. So if you have some gifts to wrap, go ahead and grab all your wrapping gear as well, and let's just have a little chit chat while we wrap some holiday gifts. Okay, so I am going to get right into it here with the first question, which is, let's see, which one do I want to do first? Goals, intentions, hopes, and dreams for the new year. So as I answer this question, I am wrapping a bingo set. This is for my father-in-law, and there's a long story behind this. Basically, his mother passed away this year, and her tradition for as long as I can remember, and so my first Christmas with John's family and his grandmother, that I spent Christmas Day with them was when I was 16, so it's been a long time, was to play bingo on Christmas Day. And so even as all of the grandchildren started having grandchildren, so her great-grandchildren, we would all try to make it up there just during the day, just for a round of bingo. It was never even like, are you coming for dinner? It was like, are you coming for bingo? So after she passed away, I immediately thought, okay, my father-in-law, I need to get him bingo so that we can continue the tradition with his grandchildren now. So I got him a bingo set, and then we got, my husband's grandmother used to always do lots of little wrapped gifts. So if you won bingo, you picked a wrapped gift out of the box. And so for this inaugural year of my father-in-law being the bingo caller, I guess you would say, I went ahead, because he doesn't know he's getting this set, and I got all the little gifts from like Five Below and things like that. So I'm going to wrap all those as well. Anyway, so hopes, dreams, goals for the new year. So this I will talk about in a more in-depth video. As most of you know, I typically do a video where I kind of share about what my word is for the year, and you know, if there's a verse that I kind of have on my mind or in my heart for the year. But I do hope that in the new year, my focus will be more on, I felt my heart really just becoming more and more tender toward homemaking in the last couple of years, and to where it's gotten to the point where anything that I'm very sensitive to feeling if something is pulling my heart away from what I feel is my first ministry, which is to my home, my family. And so I'm hoping that the word and the verse that I've chosen for the new year, which I've already chosen, is just reflective of that. Just that I'm wanting to be intentional and really just have a heart toward my home, and that in all that I do in my home, that it's done in love for my family, and a desire to see my children grow spiritually, and just to bless my spouse spiritually. So that's really that's it. That's really like the extent of my goals and hopes for the new year. I think anytime that you have a spiritual focus, it kind of shapes you up in other ways. So as far as like fitness or food or anything, like, you know, goals or hopes or aspirations for the new year, just kind of having a focus on prioritizing my desire to minister to my family first will then fall behind that. So obviously that will entail taking care of myself in different capacities. So that's really all I'm going to say about that until I sit down and film that video. I'm actually going to have to film that video very soon and then get it scheduled in a couple of weeks here. So yeah, so that's the first question. Is this a little difficult because I feel like the wrapping part of this is very loud. Next question. Okay, I'm gonna try to balance some like more deep questions with some lighter questions. So I'm gonna pop on over to, okay, maybe it's been too long since I've done a Q&A because these are all pretty in-depth questions. Okay, the next question was, were there 2 pet stockings? So if you don't follow me on Instagram, I like made a joke recently about, I showed our stockings and I was like, it looks like so many more stockings now that we just added one more for the baby. And I was like, and by the way, those little mini stockings are for our pets, so leave me alone. Like, no, I'm not having another baby right now. And so somebody's asking if there were 2 pet stockings. And yes, we have 2 pets. I don't talk about it much. We have our dog, which many of you know is an accidental Great Dane mix. We have a Labrador dog, and then we have my son, now he's 9. He has a bearded dragon, Frosty. We got this bearded dragon last year. He actually saved up for a very long time. He had his goal set on this bearded dragon for a long time. So he's had a bearded dragon for a year now, and dare I say, I actually love the little thing. So yes, our bearded dragon has a stocking. So yes, there are 2 pet stockings for our 2 pets that I very rarely talk about. All right, this was a really bad wrapping job, but thankfully it's for my father-in-law who won't notice at all. So let me write that down real quick before I forget, because in years past I have forgotten what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So, to Papa from the kids. All right. Done with that one. Okay. I'm actually going to go ahead and get started on my kids' gifts here, because I can't believe I don't even have any of those wrapped yet. So these are for Josie Bear. I think I'm just going to wrap them all at once. Okay, so while I'm getting that, let's see here. The next question is, there were a lot of questions about like my testimony of your childhood. I'd love to hear your testimony. And I'm going to tie that into, was there a specific event or season that made your heart so tender toward motherhood? And was there a specific event or season that made your heart so tender toward the Lord? Because I feel like for me, that's going to be a very similar answer. And you know, I've always been hesitant to share the story of my childhood because it involved a lot of people whose stories I really don't know if I should share. So let me get this paper cut and then I'll press record because I feel like it's okay. So what do I want to say about this without going into a 45-minute story on its own? I do hope that one day I can figure out how to share this without sharing details too personal to people's lives, because I feel like there are always 2 sides, if not more, to every story, and especially in an adoption story that feels kind of sticky and complicated like mine. There are definitely, I'm very well aware that there are other perspectives and experiences that caused what happened to happen, but so I can't it's hard for me to talk about it with like absolute certainty because I was just the kid in the middle of a lot. But I will tell you what I do know to be true. So I'm adopted. I'm actually not adopted. I say it casually like I'm adopted, but I'm not. I had guardian. Somebody had guardianship over me within my family, which made me feel like very unstable, like a lot of instability growing up, even though I had a wonderful home life, because I knew that if at any moment my biological mom wanted to exercise her rights, she could. And there were moments where I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt and say unknowingly she kind of threatened me with that. Although I think personally it felt very scary as a child to have that kind of daunting feeling. But regardless, so I was adopted within my family, but I call those parents mom and dad. So if I ever say mom or dad, I'm talking about the people who had guardianship over me growing up and the people who I still consider to be my mom and dad, who are my kids' grandparents. But basically my biological mom was very young when she had me, and she tried to raise me for a couple of months. My biological dad was not involved from the beginning. He was actually much older than she, and so I think legally there were probably concerns regardless. So he took off, and from what I'm told, everyone was okay with him taking off because he was not, you know, someone who I think they would have preferred to have to deal with, although I will say there's something to be said for a child knowing their parent, at least, if that's at all possible. So I've never met him. I know his name. I've never communicated with him, but I did, thanks to social media, find him on a curious streak one day after a really hard counseling session as an adult. I think I was 30 when this happened. And when I tell you that I am his spitting image, I am his spitting image. So no denying that. Never had a relationship with him. Didn't even feel the magnitude of not knowing him until, like I said, I was about 30, because the dad who I call dad is incredible in so many ways. And you guys hear me talk about my dad all the time. I literally feel like I hit the jackpot with parents, with the parents that I have, and it has definitely helped me in my spiritual understanding, because I've always felt like I was, you know, just the idea of being adopted into sonship with Christ, or through Christ, I've always felt like I understand that, because I feel like I got I'm the luckiest girl in the world for the parents who adopted me. So that's always actually been a really positive highlight in my personal testimony, is like the mom and dad that I got, and just their spiritual awareness, and how much that I just, you know, I couldn't have picked a better set of parents if I had tried. So that being said, I really never felt the whole of not having a relationship with my biological father until I was much older. So I have a biological father, and then as a infant, I was in the process of being adopted by my biological mom's first husband. He lived on a military base. They lived on a military base at the time, and he was getting deployed for something. He came home, found me as a very young infant, had been left alone for quite some time. I needed medical care because I had been alone for so long. And so before, like within a day of him leaving, he ended up taking me to the nearest relatives, which were the parents who I have now. And from everyone's stories that they've told me, including his, because I have actually spoken to him. I made contact with him in my 20s because I do credit him for potentially saving my life. Nobody heard from her for a very long time. So she either assumed that I ended up with who I ended up with and knew I was safe, or she had no intention of coming back for a long time. She ended up around that time getting pregnant with my sister. My sister and I are just about a year apart, just over a year apart. So she had run off with someone, and I have a little sister who's not really my little sister. We're practically the same age. We're actually closer to 2 years apart now that I say that. So yes, so then I had a kind of second dad by the time I was a few months old. And then I was adopted, you know, given guardianship of my parents now, and I've been with them ever since. However, my biological mom was back and forth in my life because, again, it's an adoption within a family, and so I had a relationship with her off and on. It was very hot and cold. I spent quite a few summers and school breaks with her. Everyone gave her an opportunity to have a positive relationship with me. Nobody knew how traumatic that was for me as a kid. Just kind of going, just this like awkwardness until I was older and I could kind of share things that were being said to me, or just things that were uncomfortable for me in that scenario. So once that was voiced, I never had to do that again, go back there again. I have a relationship with my younger brother and sister, and we have great relationship. We have, I mean, I don't want to call it like, use hot word, like heavy words, but we all went through a lot because of her, and so we have a very unique bond, and we have a really, really close relationship because we've all been through like some trauma based on the ins and outs of her. I actually have a good relationship with their dad, which was a sweet experience in 2021. I actually, for the first time in probably 20 years, I was a teenager the last time that I visited Detroit, where they're from. Flew up there in 2021, saw our old stomping grounds. I grew up in Chicago, but they grew up in Detroit, so that's where I would go visit. And it was very sweet to kind of be in our childhood place with our childhood memories without her. And it sounds so harsh, so I'm trying to be really careful in how I say things, but when you are on the receiving end of the consequences of someone else's sin, it's just hard. So I understand, like, there are mental health issues, there are personal choices, and then there's just straight up like selfish decisions that were made by her. But she's also, you know, has a spiritual capacity, and I really pray that she knows the Lord. So when I went up to visit them, I also got to see their dad for the first time since I was 14, I want to say. I think Easter of my freshman year of high school was the last time that I went up there, and then I came back and I was like, I'm done. So I got to see him for the first time in like 20 years, and that was so sweet and special. And I plan to bring my whole family up there soon, because when I would go visit them, he was a stable person in that household. And so even though he wasn't my dad or my stepdad, he could have been my stepdad at one point, and he treated me like I was his child, so that was always special. Anyway, fast forward, like I said, a lot of things didn't really hit me until once I was 30, relative to my childhood, and just the back and forth and the fears that were associated with not having a permanent adoption, and really just feeling like at any point I could be plucked up out of nowhere and placed in another home. So a lot of it didn't hit me until I was older, and especially around Mother's Day. Mother's Day is always a hard one for me. I would consider myself to be as healed as I can be personally. Spiritually, God's always using my story to refine me and to continue to grow me in a spiritual way. But Mother's Day is always hard. And so a few years ago, I was really struggling on Mother's Day. I have a hard time. John gives me distance on Mother's Day. He gives me the space he thinks I need. And some Mother's Days I wake up and I'm feeling great, and some days I wake up and it hits me like a ton of bricks. And on this one particular Mother's Day, I woke up practically in tears because I woke up and I got on my phone, and the first thing I saw was a sweet tribute John had posted to me. And I looked, and the face I was making in the picture that he posted, I looked just like her. And I struggle with, I'm a spitting image of her, and sometimes the face I see is a face that I remember bad memories of when I look in the mirror. So I have a little bit of an image issue in that sense. And I just remember praying, like, I walked out, the kids were really excited to give me breakfast, and I was like, John, I just need to go take a shower. I just need a minute. I'm having a hard time. He's like, I understand. We'll make bacon, kind of a thing. Like, I'll stretch this experience out longer. I got in the shower and I was just crying my eyes out. And I just remember being like, God, why? Why? This is the first time I ever questioned anything. I always sensed the Lord's presence growing up, knowing that I kind of had no one but Jesus. And thankfully my parents had introduced me to the Lord, and I knew that even if I was taken from their home, I had the Lord. And so I had a really strong relationship with Christ as a young child. I can remember it, and that's why I believe my children, when they say they want to be baptized or they say they know the Lord, I believe that because I had that experience as a child. I knew the Lord young. But this is the first time I questioned anything, and it was this whole like, God, why is this a thing I'm stuck to deal with? Why, I've done all the counseling I can do. I have my own family, my own house now. I have control over the situation, but why did you make me look like her? Why do I have to look in the mirror and see her face on my body? And it's one of the first times I ever heard an audible voice of the Lord, and he said, you look like me. And your face will be a face of grace to your children. And I realized in that moment, in that breakdown in the shower, that, when he created my mother, he never intended for her to be ensnared by sin and to have that face be one that caused hurt and pain for other people, for that to be the memory people associated with it. But that's all I know of it. And so when you think about that we're created in the Lord's image, we were created to portray his character, and for our faces to be, you always hear people say, you might be the only Jesus people meet. And so I realized that when my kids look at my face, they don't see her. They don't see the feelings I associate with her. They don't feel the feelings that I experience when I see my face. And instead, Lord willing, humbly, I'll say that my face will be one of just wanting to love the Lord and to have my kids love the Lord, and a face of grace like he told me. And I can't understand that because I don't know a face of grace when I see this face, but I know that was the Lord's intentions when he made her, and it was his intentions when he made me. And I have all of the opportunity in the world with the power of the Lord to change that course of the genetics and what people see when they see my children, and when my children are older, what they'll see, what their kids will see. And so it just was such a sweet word that the Lord gave me. And so that was probably one of the most tender things that's happened in my life, that's made me just tender toward motherhood, because I don't understand my kids. I don't know what it feels like to be them, and that's always been a big disconnect for me. I don't know what it feels like to be secure in your home. I don't know what it feels like to look at your mom and dad and have a bad day and not feel like you could be taken out of the house. I don't know what that feels like. I don't understand their experience as children. I felt like I was 30 from the time I was 5. And so in my own flesh, that manifests as perfection. I don't understand them, but I have a code of conduct that requires perfection because I've always felt like I had to earn my keep. That's just a natural thing. I think when you're an adopted child, you feel like you have to earn your keep, or you have to make up for the fact that you are now taking up space in someone's home. And So I don't understand their security. I don't understand the feeling they feel. I don't understand their relationship and comfort level with me, but I know that Christ can be magnified in my weakness, and he will utilize my perfectionist or insecure ways to draw me nearer to him and to work through me as a mother toward my children. And so I'm allowing him to do that in the best way I can, which is not always perfectly, but I know that the only way I can mother and the only way that I can parent well is by the grace of God and through his strength only, not my own, because mine is crippled by my experiences, like most of us, you know, are. None of us really have the capacity outside of Christ to parent well. And so I just pray that he is magnified in my weakness, and that is my answer to how my heart is tender toward the idea of mothering and parenting. So let's go to a lighter question now, shall we? So I said, okay, I'm only gonna do 20 minutes, and then I spent 20 minutes on one story. So I'm gonna try to just pick a few more. Next question is, there's a lot, it's so funny, there's a lot of the same questions. The next question is a lot of questions about college. So what classes are you taking at Moody? Do you have a goal, or are you just continuing your education for the love of learning? What's the goal with the degree you're earning? How are you managing college classes with being a mom and homeschool life? So I'll touch on college really quick. I'm continuing my education at Moody Bible Institute. This unfolded very slowly but surely. I told John, I'm from Chicago, it's my hometown. I told John a couple years ago, like, I don't think I'm crazy, but I feel like God is putting Chicago back in my heart, which is like super weird because he owns businesses here in Florida and they're specific to our area, and we can't leave. Like he can't run his businesses anywhere else. And so I'm like, but I'm just telling you, like, the Lord's telling me Chicago. So like, I think we're going home to Chicago. And also like the Cubs were having a great year that year. So I'm like, maybe I just need to move home to be around my Cubbies. But then anyway, sidetracked. But I started to all of a sudden develop an interest in going back to school. And I was like, what are you doing, God? I don't have time for this, first of all. And what the heck? Like I don't have a goal of a career right now. I want to homeschool. I want to stay home. Like, what's happening? And just very slowly but surely, he was just planting. I just walked through each next door. So it was very like reluctant, like, okay, what are we doing? Why are we applying to this college? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And it got to where I got accepted. They were able to get, you know, everything I needed to get right back on track with this one particular degree program. And I was like, why am I doing this? I still didn't even have a goal. I had to like pick a lane. And so I waited as long as I could, which was a full year. I didn't say anything here online like about going there or anything. And then they were like, hey, you were accepted a year ago. Like, if you don't take your first class, like, you're going to lose your enrollment. And I had to jump through a few hoops to transfer some things over because a lot of my stuff was very old and like past what would normally transfer easily. And so I was like, okay, then I'm just going to take a class. And so back in January, I picked a class, started taking school, and didn't pick but because I only have to take classes toward my major, I had to pick a major rather quickly. And so the one degree program that I'm in, I have about a year worth of classes to do, but I'm gonna take probably like 7 years because I'm literally taking 2 classes a semester, 1 per 8-week semester. And so I had a few options, and I was like, okay, this is it. It's gonna be ministry to women. And so I am currently pursuing that, just a ministry degree toward women. And it's just funny how the thing that could have been the most traumatizing thing in my life is the thing that the Lord has me running toward and pursuing, like counseling women or speaking to women, or I'm not exactly sure what it looks like right now. I don't plan to pursue any of it until my kids are grown, but the one reason that I always felt very confident in going back to school is just for credibility's sake. When I write, when I share, I would love to write devotions. I would love to share more spiritually online or in a book form or something, and I just felt like this was the next right step to continuing to do what I'm doing here, just by sharing life authentically and just having the opportunity to disciple even virtually in messages. And I just think it's been a really unique and cool gift, that this experience with YouTube and social media, and I don't see that stopping. You know, I think the world is very virtual, and we have been given a great opportunity to utilize a platform for good, and the Lord has given me opportunity to have even a small platform, and so I want to be obedient to steward that well. And I just felt like I had hit a point where I was like, hey, I need to actually know that I know what I'm talking about, and so pursue this very specifically, so that I don't feel like I'm caught off guard or that I'm giving bad counsel when I'm speaking to people. So that kind of gives a little bit more insight to what I'm doing, or my purpose of being in school right now. People are asking how I keep my house tidy. I have a housekeeper, if that helps, as far as like tidiness. So once a week, my house gets cleaned, and then I just have to keep up with it. I'm just gonna be really honest with you guys. That's how I do it all and keep my house tidy. It's actually very untidy right now. It's just laundry mostly everywhere in my house. Last one, I don't want to make this forever long. So what is the thing that changed when Josie arrived that I least expected? And I'll be really honest, and then I'll just be kind of candid. So really honest, since I feel like this took a very vulnerable turn, it took a very interesting, I had a lot of all of a sudden identity issues. Like all of a sudden, I was really insecure, like in my marriage, as a parent, as a friend. I'm not sure why. I think I just got thrown back into a baby season that I was very confident in, and I had a really long break from, and I didn't like prepare my heart well. And all of a sudden I was like, what is my marriage if I don't have time every single night to talk your ear off? What is my marriage if I don't have our weekly date night? What am I as a parent if I can't accomplish all these things? And so it really took a pretty big identity hit, but I feel like I've worked through that. It was the very first few weeks kind of a thing. And then kind of on a more casual level, I wasn't expecting to not be exhausted all the time. I was fully prepared to just be wiped out all the time. And I actually feel like she sleeps really well. Maybe that's what it is. She's a good sleeper. She's a really happy girl. So I wasn't expecting to sleep so well. All right, that's all that we have time for right now. I hope you guys got some of your Christmas wrapping done as we chatted. I won't be back until after Christmas, obviously, by the time I'm posting this. So I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas. I'm praying for each of you, as I always do. You guys hold a big, near and dear place in my heart. So especially in the Christmas season, as I'm hustling and bustling, and I know all of you are too, you're on my heart and you're in my prayers. So I hope and pray that you have a wonderful Christmas with your families, and I will see you soon.